welcome to this month's People Care Health Services Community Connections. We have an awesome hour lined up for you today. It's all full of inspiration and motivation, and our guest today will be Stephen Garbett, which is Team USA Skeleton National Team Athlete. He has a lot to say in a bio, and it's part of his presentation, so I'm going to hold off to say too much about Stephen today, but he was raised, he's a native of Denver, Colorado. He was raised in Elizabeth, and he's always enjoyed baseball, football, basketball, but he's always had a driven force behind speed. He needs that speed. And so he's going to talk a lot about that today. He encourages questions to be asked throughout his presentation today. So feel free at any time to reach out with a question, and we'll get those answers for you. Stephen, it's all yours now.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you guys for having me out here today and being able to talk and share my story about my journey through to hopefully making it to the next Olympics and making it onto the U.S. national team. So my name's Stephen Garbett. I'm on the U.S. national bobsled and skeleton team. I do the sport of skeleton. In the sport of skeleton, we actually travel headfirst down the bobsled track. We get speeds up to 90 miles an hour, G-force up to 5.5 Gs. So all with your chin just an inch off the ice. So it's very, it's not for the faint of heart. It's very, very fascinating. A lot of people ask, how do you get started in a sport like that growing up in Colorado? So I actually grew up out in Elizabeth, Colorado, born and raised in Parker and Aurora, Colorado. So I went to school in Parker, and I also graduated from Gateway High School. I played the more traditional sports growing up, baseball, football, basketball, all those sports that we normally do. But I always had aspirations of becoming an Olympian. And just like a lot of little kids, we all have dreams and passions. Some want to be astronauts, some want to be doctors. I always wanted to be an Olympian. So I didn't know how I was going to do that when I was young. And I learned that as playing through my regular sports growing up, a path came to me. On the next slide, it's going to show you guys a little bit about me. Like I said, when I grew up, I always had that need for speed. So I actually grew up with, I was four boys in my family. I was the third of four. And I guess how I got started doing skeleton was thankfully to my brothers growing up. We used to do crazy things in the country. We used to hook up the canoe behind the truck, and we'd go 70 miles an hour through the fields, towing it when it snowed. So a lot of crazy things. And with having two older brothers and one younger brother, my two older brothers always didn't want to do things because they didn't want to get hurt. So, and they knew they couldn't hurt my youngest brother. So I was always the test subject. So I guess I owe it to them, thanking them for the position that I'm in now.
Well, your mother.
Yeah. So I quickly learned when I was younger to volunteer for the crazy things, because my brothers would either duct tape me to it and I had no option, or I would just do it myself. Oh, wow. We did some wild things when we were in the country. But that's how I guess I got started liking speed and enjoying and having that motivation to do something like skeleton, because not everyone has the idea of throwing themselves down a mountain at 90 miles an hour head first. It's not quite for everybody. We're going to go to the next screen here. So here is a point of view of what it's like, what I do daily of skeleton. So this is what it looks like if you were to go down a skeleton track. I wanted to show everybody so they could see it. So did you want to click play for us? So this is actually in Park City, Utah, at the top of the track. Right now I'm setting my sled down, and at the top of the track we run bent over, pushing the sled, then we dive on head first.
Right. And is that ice?
That's all ice. So it's all ice on the track. So then we navigate our way down the track. When we are driving down the track, we use little movements. What I mean by little movements is, think about if you're driving down the freeway at 80, 90 miles an hour. That's the speed I'm hitting right now on the track, is 80 miles an hour. If you stick your hand out the window and you lift your fingers up, it's going to rip your hand back. Same thing with us on a skeleton sled. If I just look out of the corner of my eyes, that's enough to steer my sled. So it's little movements. So we use, that's the littlest steer that we have. Then we also use our shoulders. So my right shoulder, my left knee, left shoulder, and right knee actually flexes the sled. It twists it. That's another way for us to steer. And then an emergency steer, if you're in a bad situation, say you're in a corner, you're way too high, you tap a toe, and that will actually redirect the sled into the proper position that you need to steer it.
Amazing. I wouldn't think just a glance out of an eye could steer.
Yep, it's the littlest thing. So actually, if we breathe when we're going down the track, we can crash because breathing steers our sled. So you only want to breathe in certain sections of the track. So I'll know each and every track around the world, and each and every track is different. There's certain corners that are bigger, and in those bigger corners, you'll have a little bit more time. Those are the corners where you, like, I'll set up where it's okay, I'm going to breathe in this corner, and it's just a little quick breath. Because if I breathe too much, then it's steering the sled, and it'll put me out of control, and I can crash.
So how long do you have to keep your breath?
Yep.
Before you get that?
That's a
chance?
Great question. So each track is about a mile long, and they take about a minute to get down. So on average, between 50 and a minute 10 is the longest track to get down in the world. So I have some teammates that hold their breath the whole time. But when you're underneath extreme G forces like we experience, so up to 5.5, 6 Gs, that's same as a Formula One race car or a fighter jet experiences. So we experience very high Gs. So being able to hold it the whole time becomes very difficult. So I actually time it with certain corners where, okay, this is when I need to do a little breathing. And it's finite movements that make the sled do what you want to do. Like I said, each track is different. All of the corners on all the tracks are all different, and they're always changing because it is ice, like we talked about a minute ago. The ice is always building up, melting, building up, melting. So that's always changing the course. So you can go down the same track, even though the corners are the same directions, it's going to be different every time you go. So you have to be able to understand that. So one of the things that we do, and one of the reasons that I like this sport so much, is how mentally challenging it is. It's very, very challenging because we have to be able to process all the different curve theories instantly. If we go into a corner of the track with our sled like this versus this, which doesn't seem like much, it completely changes the curve theory throughout the corner, and we have to be able to understand that and react instantly, because if we're thinking about it, we're making a mistake and then we're crashing, or we're hitting a wall doing this, and that can be very, very painful.
So let me understand this a little bit better.
Yep.
So you go into that curve.
Yep.
You have to understand that theory,
Yep.
and then you have to adjust to that curve.
Exactly.
But that could mean, okay, I need to twitch my
exactly
my right arm a little bit.
Yep.
Look out my left eye.
Yep.
And you make that.
Exactly. So that's exactly correct. So when we go in, I can understand and I can feel where I'm at in the corner, and I can make a quick steer with my shoulder or adjustment. So that way I'm creating the pressure through the corner for the exact right moment. So that way it shoots me out of the corner. And one of the things when we go around the world and we'll have coaches videoing us in the corners, and they'll say, hey, we want you to try adjusting the curve theory in this corner and maybe pushing the pressure further. And sometimes you go through, it works, it sends you out, you go fast, it's great. Sometimes it goes through and it shoots you straight into the side wall, and that can be extremely painful. So we bruise our arms a lot, we'll dislocate our ribs a lot, and we can bruise our legs and stuff like that. Those are the normal things that happen daily with us, but that's not a crash in our sport. A crash in our sport is if we lose our sled. So when we lose our sled, it doesn't happen very often, but that's a bad day. One of the questions that I get most from people is, have you ever crashed? And I'll tell you guys about the story of when I crashed and how it was. It was a wild day. So I was in Lake Placid, New York, up at our track there, and I was going down the track. And right when I got on my sled, I knew something was wrong because my sled started pulling really hard to the left. We don't have brakes on our sled. We can't stop. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to get off right now. We have to go to the bottom. So I knew that I was having a problem, and I was like, okay, I need to stay calm, because when you're in a situation, any kind of situation like that, you need to be able to relax and stay calm. That's when you're going to make the right decisions. And as I'm going down the track, I get into corner 10. In Lake Placid, corner 10 is about 25-foot tall corner. It's a really big corner. And we're hitting about 70 miles an hour at this point. And I get into the corner, and my sled broke left, and then the G-forces hit me. And our runners on the bottom of the sled, which give us traction, they're actually round in the front, and they have grooves cut into them in the back. This is what gives us the traction when the pressure hits us. So the pressure hit me, it shot me straight into the roof, which is about 25 feet in the air. I started flying away from the wall. This is when I knew I was in a lot of trouble because I was going away from the wall. And at that time, what they do is they teach us, if you do crash, they prepare us for the situation. So it's all about being prepared for those kind of situations, being prepared in life for things that are going to come at you. Because a lot of things will come at you unexpected, but if you practice and you're ready for them and you prepare yourself, you'll be able to handle the situation the best way that it can be handled. And when I started falling away, in any kind of accident, the best thing they tell you to do is to go limp. The people that go limp in car accidents and stuff like that, it's a tragedy that people do drink and drive, but the ones that are normally drunk are the ones that survive, and that's because their body goes limp. Everybody else tightens up. So with us, they teach us to go limp. So I went limp. I fell all the way down, hit the bottom of the track, and the short wall is what keeps us in the track. Flew, hit the other short wall, and then I did a front flip going 75 miles an hour out of the corner. Very, very dangerous. And then when you're off your sled, we don't have pads or anything like that. We wear skin-tight speed suits, and kind of like Under Armour spandex material is what we wear. And when you hit the ice, they tell you if you're on the ice, if you lose your sled, to start rolling slowly. And the reason they tell you to roll slowly is because it's going to start getting hot. And when it's getting hot, that's your skin melting off. So it's it can be very, very dangerous. And you don't register that until it's actually happening. So when I crashed, I started getting hot, and I'm like, oh, I need to roll. So I started rolling, and as I was rolling, I was going into another corner where there's G-forces, and it slams my head into the ice, and it was just a bad day. I slid about 300 yards, so about 3 football fields, before I came to a stop. I was very, very lucky. The only injury I had, I'd melted some skin on my back, but I didn't have any major injuries. I wanted to get back on the track that day. But they held me off because of concussion protocol. They wanted to make sure my head was okay before they allowed me back on the track. But I wanted to get back on that day because I know whenever you fall off, you need to get back up and you need to go and you need to keep going with life. And that's whatever it is in life. The next day, I was cleared to go back on the track. I got to the top of the track, and that was the most terrifying day of my life. I was so nervous, so scared to get on the track, but I knew that I needed to overcome that adversity and I needed to get back on and do it again. So once I got on the sled, I laid down, I knew everything was fine. But that initial being able to run and jump onto the sled was so terrifying, and I scared myself so much that if I didn't go that day, I probably would be retired. I probably wouldn't be doing the sport anymore. But because I was able to consciously overcome that and say, okay, it is under control, I can handle this. I've been in this situation many times. I know what I'm doing. And I was able to get back up quick and do it right away. That's the reason that I was able to continue. So that's
a couple of things that I would just like to ask that I think I think that most people could wonder about is, how do you prepare for calmness? I mean, or train for calmness, should we say?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. A lot of times it's putting yourself in the uncomfortable situations and understanding that you need to stay calm in those situations. A lot of people don't have those kind of situations in their life, but once, twice, maybe 3 times in their life, if at all. But if you can expose yourself to simulated experiences like that, where you can understand and you can stay calm and you can process things, is the best way to do it. So with us going down on a skeleton sled, we train our body every day to stay calm, because when we're driving the sled, how I told you how sensitive it was earlier, if we're tight, if we're stiff, our sleds naturally move, so that it's always going to be moving with the ice. If we're laying on top of it and we're stiff, every time the sled starts to move, it's going to steer it. But if we stay relaxed, it's going to actually flow with the track and go with it. Also, when we're training, if we go to and we actually mess up a corner and we hit a wall, if we tense up, what's going to happen is you hit another wall and another wall and another wall, and it's a ping pong effect. So we actually learn very quick, okay, if you stay relaxed and you do tap a wall, if you're staying relaxed in that crazy situation, all that's going to happen, you're going to hit that wall and then you're going to continue going straight instead of hitting numerous walls. So we actually learn from it all the time. In our sport, we're able to. But I have talked with many people and many different situations, and it's just understanding and preparing yourself for a bad situation if a bad situation does arise. What is your plan going to be? If you have a worst case scenario, and whatever it is in life, say you lose a family member, okay, how are you going to be able to handle that? You never want to think about losing a family member. It's not good. Or a family member getting injured. How are we going to be able to handle it? But if you take a step back and it's like, okay, if mom does get hurt, what are we going to do? Who's going to handle this situation? How are we going to handle the situation? Or are we just going to go into it blind? If you go into it blind, it's chaos and you don't understand what you need to do. But if you go into the situation and it's like, okay, I've thought this process through and it's not a situation that I want to be in, but because I've taken a step back and I've analyzed it, I can understand, okay, this happened. Okay, this is what I need to be doing. Obviously, you're going to have the anxiety. Everything's going to be going crazy. But because you've already done the thought process, you're going to be able to analyze it and properly take the steps that you're going to need to be going forward instead of just going any which direction. So you'll have a strategic plan laid out for yourself.
Yeah, because you only have like a half a second to make those changes happen.
Exactly. Yeah, and we have to be able to, we have to analyze each situation going down the track, and we have to have it memorized and processed, because if we are thinking about it, you're already in the next corner. When you're traveling that fast, it goes by really, really quick. So you have to understand, and you can't look back and say, oh, I made a mistake right there. Because if you look back and be like, oh, I made that mistake, the next mistakes, or you're going to make another one, and then it compounds. So we all make mistakes, like especially in my sport. It's the person who makes the least amount of mistakes that ends up winning. We all are going to make mistakes. So, but it's not dwelling on that mistake. It's being able to just continue. Okay, you made that mistake, process the next one, so that way you're not making another mistake, and staying attentive and focused going forward.
So in the beginning, I'm assuming that you made some mistakes. How long would you say it took to understand the concept of remaining calm and being able to process that quick? I mean, how long did it take for you that to all click in?
So each person is different, and I am lucky where I picked that up very quick, and I thank that to my brothers growing up, because that's a lesson that I learned when I was really young. I didn't realize I learned it until later in life, but I learned it doing the crazy things that I did in the country. Getting pulled behind a truck going 70 miles an hour, for example. You learn those kind of things through experience. So I was able to learn it pretty quick. Once I got on the ice in my sport, I picked it up faster than anybody else really in my sport. When you start the sport of skeleton, so how you get involved in it, you go out and you do some research. There's not much research on the sport of skeleton. You don't know how to get started. So when you actually get started, you do a combine. It's kind of like an NFL combine. They're testing your speed and your strength. When they test your speed and your strength, they're looking for certain abilities. If you pass the elite athlete qualification, they bring you out to sliding school. And what sliding school is they bring you out to a track, and it's up in Lake Placid, New York, and you start from halfway. And at this time, you're like, a million things are going through your head. You're like, what's going on here? How do I do this? You don't know. And all the guidance they give you is lay there like a sack of potatoes. So you're like, wait, I'm about to throw myself head first down a track at speeds up to 90 miles an hour, and you want me to just lay here like a sack of potatoes? They're like, yes, lay there. So what they're looking for is that ability, that natural ability to be able to stay relaxed, and the coachability and listen to the coaches, even though it's an extreme environment. Your coach will tell you to do something. They want to be able to see if you can actually process that in extreme environments. So fortunately, I was able to pick it up really, really quick. During that week, it takes a week to get to the top of the track, and not everybody makes it to the top. At the end of the week, they normally cut about 95% of people. The last 5% they invite to join the development team. Once you are invited to join the development team, they say, you have the abilities that we are looking for. You can make it on our team. You could possibly make it to the Olympics. We want you here, but it's all self-funded, so it's going to be on you. So at that time, you have to make a sacrifice. Okay, do I go into my career or do I go into this path? And I decided that I had a very unique ability and a very special opportunity that if I went this path, it could lead to some amazing things. I decided to go ahead and postpone my career and do this path. And it's the best decision I have ever made. I am the poorest I've ever been in my life, but I'm also the happiest I've ever been in my life because I'm following my dreams and being able to follow the passion, whatever your passion is in life, being able to see it, but making that commitment is really hard. You get to that step in life where you can go the easy path. You can go the career. You could do whatever it is. That's easy. You have it lined up, or you can take that leap of faith, take that step, whether it's starting a business, whether it's doing this, and extending yourself and going out there and knowing, okay, this could fail miserably, or this could lead to some amazing things. And that's one of the hardest decisions that you'll come across in your life. And I'm glad that I was able to make that decision and go down that path. And it's led me to where I'm at right now.
Yeah, because you're all in.
Exactly.
You have to be all in.
Exactly. We're going to go to the next slide. I wanted to cover some of the skeleton equipment.
Okay.
Skeleton equipment. So right here, this is a picture of me. That's my helmet, actually. I have Captain America's shield on the top of my helmet. So it's really cool. So when I'm coming down the track, you see Captain America's shield. And on one side, it's Captain America on a knee holding up the shield. And on the other side is the Winter Soldier, which is one of his arch nemesis. So, and he's also Russian. So it's like US versus Russia. And it's just a battle that I have going on my helmet. So skeleton helmets are one of the coolest things in the Winter Olympics. A lot of times when one of the most popular things going on in the Winter Olympics are skeleton helmet designs, and who has the best designs and how cool they are. So that's my skeleton helmet. I love it. The next thing is the material. The speed suit that I'm wearing is a skin tight material. It's like spandex, but it's aerodynamic. So it's designed for speed. So we actually go in wind tunnels and we'll lay there and we'll test aerodynamics. So last year I went down to some wind tunnels. We go down to Moore, North Carolina. That's where all the a lot of the wind tunnels for the race car, for NASCAR is. So I was in the same wind tunnel as Jimmy Johnson was there later that day. He's a NASCAR racer. He was testing his car. I was testing myself because I'm the vehicle going down the track in the wind tunnels. And we test the different materials so that way we can get the best advantage going down the track. So those are, then we have gloves. So it's just like baseball gloves that we wear. And we also have spikes. If you want to go to the next slide, we'll be able to see a picture of my skeleton slides. Oh, there's the side of the helmet. I forgot I threw this one in here. So on one side of the helmet, you see the Captain America holding the shield up, Winter Soldier on the other, and then we're representing the U.S. We have to wrap it in the U.S. flag.
Sure.
So it's all about representing USA, and that's one of the biggest honors for me is being able to represent my country, my state of Colorado, in national competition and in international competition as well, and having the flag on it.
It seems like an awesome fun.
Yeah. If you want to go to the next slide. This right here shows my track spikes. So they're white right there. So they're a lot like track spikes. Most people are familiar with track spikes, but track spikes have really long spikes. These ones have 300 little spikes on it. The reason that it has 300 little spikes on it is so it doesn't tear up the ice at the beginning of the track. Because if it tears it up, then it would be a disadvantage for the people going behind you. So it actually saves the track. I'm actually bent over holding my sled right there. And the part where my hand is actually holding, that's what we call our saddle. Each saddle is custom to each individual, and it's built around your rib cage. And this is so that way when you lay down on the sled, it fits perfectly around your rib cage, and it holds you on the sled in position when you're going down the track. We don't have a seat belt. We don't strap in, anything like that. That's what holds us in. It's just a little saddle. And then it's flat on the top, and then the bottom is a carbon fiber or fiberglass. And then it has steel on the inside that is all certain kinds of steels. That's the top secret designs of our sleds. Our sleds, everybody has it, like it has general requirements that it has to be, but each sled manufacturer makes different kinds of sleds within those parameters. And it's all top secret. And the different kinds of metals and materials that are used are are also secret as well. So like one of the steels, like in my sled, for example, is the same steel that they use for F-16 landing gear. And the reason that it is because it has 20,000 pounds of memory. And what I mean by that is it has perfect memory. So if this is the metal and it bends a little bit, it automatically bends back up to 20,000 pounds. So when I'm going through a corner at 6 Gs or 5.5 Gs, my sled's going to flex, but once those G forces let up, it's going to snap back to straight, and that helps accelerate us throughout and down the track. Also on the bottom, you can kind of see the runners which sit on the ice. And on the runners, they're actually rounded in the front, and they have grooves cut into them in the back. We have different sets of runners where the grooves are different in the back for different control, kind of like snow tires versus regular season tires versus all-terrain tires. We have the different conditions for the different ice conditions out there. And then we actually have at the top of the track is where I'm at right now. There's 2 grooves cut in the ice, and it's designed for the bobsled, the width of a bobsled. With the skeleton sled, we put one of our runners in the groove and the other one's out of the groove. So we choose which side we want to push on and which groove we want to be in. And actually, this is one of the most difficult parts of the track. So we run bent over, touching our toes pretty much. It's a very, very difficult position to run in. And we have to keep our runner in that groove. If we push a little bit down hard, too hard straight down, to the right, to the left, what happens is we call it, it pops a groove. At that point, your race is over. So it's very, very important to get a good start at the top of the track. One thing they tell us if you have the same equipment, your same driving abilities are about the same, they say a 1/10 advantage at the top of the track ends up being a 3/10 advantage at the bottom of the track. And that is huge in our sport. Our sport, we are fighting for 1/100th of a second. So that's faster than a blink of an eye. That's the difference between first and second for us. At the length of a mile long and the speeds that we travel, that's the length of a fingernail. So over a mile long, that's what we're racing for. The difference between first and second is the length of that fingernail right there.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I just think of the normal population and the challenges that we face on a day in, day out basis.
Yes.
And we're talking about your challenge of being less than a blink of a second.
Yes.
A blink of an eye, as you mentioned.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
Wow.
We're fighting for the littlest things. But the biggest thing that when we are fighting for that, it's all about preparation. Preparation in life, preparation in sport. Just like in the work world, you got to prepare, you got to have yourself organized, you got to have yourself ready for the stuff. Same thing with me. I have to prepare and organize so that way I'm ready to go down the ice. We travel around the world and we go to all these competitions. We get 6 runs and then we race, and our races are 2 heats. So that's 6 minutes on the track. That's nothing. That's very little amount of time. But what we do is the POV video that I showed you guys earlier, we have those kind of videos of the track. So what I'll do is I'll lay down on my sled and I'll put the computer in front of me and I'll practice going down the track 1,000 times. Even though I'm not on the track, I visually stimulate what it's like going down the track. So that way when I get on the ice, even though I'm limited to only 6 runs, 6 minutes, I'm prepared. And it's all about that preparation of going into the race and understanding and being prepared for anything that can happen. So I'll set myself up for that.
Nice.
Yeah. You want to go to the next slide for us? Stopping. So like I told you earlier, we don't have brakes. We can't stop. So at the end of the track is what we call an outrun. And normally the last 3 corners of every track are uphill. And then the outrun is normally steeper uphill. But the outrun is actually the most dangerous parts of the track. So we do use the same track as the bobsled and the luge. In a bobsled, when they get to the bottom, they actually have a brakeman that stands up and pulls the brakes. Luge, they grab the front of their sled and they dig their runners into the ice, which stops them. With us, we actually have to just dig our feet into the ground to try to stop us. And it's very, very dangerous because a lot of the tracks are not designed well for skeletons sleds to stop. So this is actually one of the most dangerous parts of the track, is actually the very end of the track when everything's already done. You think it's done, but it's not. You really got to focus and try to stop. It can be very, very dangerous. But this is a picture of me stopping in Park City, right here, Park City, Utah.
And you're doing that by just lifting
your
body.
Yep, so you lift up your body. Some people like extend their arms completely. I used to do that, and I would dig my spikes in more, but I almost flew out of the track going 80 miles an hour doing that because when the bobsleds break, they create little rivets in the ice, and I hit one of them, my hand slipped off my sled, and I started flying out of the track. Luckily, I held on with the other hand, but I hit the top of the short wall. The short wall is what keeps us in the track. So my back landed on the top, and then I came in, and that scared me a lot. So now I just lean up a little bit to it because the air will naturally stop you, and then you dig your feet into the ice. It destroys your spikes, which becomes costly because our spikes, they're very, very expensive because they're custom made. They're $300 for a set of spikes, but I would rather destroy a set of spikes than injure myself.
Wow. I just, as you went through your equipment, we're not seeing any kind of safety gear.
Yeah.
There's no pads. There's nothing,
Yep.
no neck brace.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking if you were to be lifting up and that G-force, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the
Whiplash.
outrun, you normally don't get the G-force as much because because it's flat. You'll get the G-forces when you're in the corners is where you get them. So in a flat section, we won't get the G-forces. So it just slows us down that way. But yeah, we don't have any safety. Our safety equipment is our helmet, which our helmet is really designed for aerodynamics. It will protect you in a crash, but it's not really that protective of equipment.
How fast are you going here, though?
This in Park City. So Park City is actually one of the poorest designed tracks in the world. We actually ran out of funds when they were building the track, so they stopped at 3 corners short.
Okay.
And because of that, we're going 80 miles an hour going into the outrun, and we have to stop. And it's not pitched very high, so we really, really have to stop. On the other hand, Lake Placid's track, we hit the outrun going about 60, but it's extremely steep, and it slows you down naturally, easy. It's very, very easy. But so it just depends on the track where you're at in the world.
If you're going down a highway with your arm out, just waving in the wind, going
Exactly.
65, you could break it because of that.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah,
You take that risk every time.
you take that risk every time, and normally with the position of the body and everything, the risk isn't that high, but it can. And also when you're dragging your feet, bobsled can break up ice chunks and stuff like that, and one of those can hit your feet, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong in the outrun. Want to go to the next slide? Okay, so how I got started in skeleton. This is my grandma right here. She passed away last year. I love her and I miss her, but so I didn't know about the sport of skeleton until 2010. In 2010, I came back here to visit my grandma, who was sick in the hospital. She was battling cancer, and all of a sudden, I got sick. My body started shutting down. Doctors couldn't figure out what's going on with me. So I ended up getting put in the hospital. I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. Doctors were like, we have no clue what's going on with you. And during that time, I saw a skeleton on the Olympics. And I told myself, if I got healthy, I was going to do 2 things. First, no one in my family ever graduated college. So I was like, I want to be the first person in my family to graduate college. Second, I was like, life's short. We don't know how much time we have. We don't even know if we have tomorrow. I want to try skeleton. I was like, I need to pursue the things that I want to pursue in life. I need to take those risks, take those chances, and go for it. So that's how I got started. So my grandma was my inspiration of getting started. And this was 2 years ago when she was battling and going through chemo. She was losing her hair, so she was always wearing her hat. And I was like, you don't have to worry about wearing a hat. So I cut my hair off for her. That's how I got started, was through my grandma and through the hospital.
So you went to college. What did you complete your studies in?
Yeah, so I ended up going to the University of South Carolina and graduated in sports and entertainment management. The reason I went there is my family did relocate to South Carolina, but I also was looking for the best international business school in the country, and that is in the University of South Carolina. It's harder to get into the international business program there than it is to get into Harvard Business School. I didn't make it. But what I did is I knew there's other avenues. I researched their sports program because I wanted to do an emphasis in sports anyway, and when I looked into it, their sports program did 70% of their classes in the International Business School, and then they did an emphasis in sports. So it was getting the education that I wanted, just with a slightly different degree. So I didn't give up saying, oh, I couldn't get in. I looked, okay, how can I still get what I want to get? And I did the research, I analyzed, and we reach those obstacles in life where you get told no, you fail. But if you continue looking and you continue fighting and you find the ways that you want, you'll be able to figure out the solution. But you just can't give up. And that's with anything in life.
It's a great message.
Yeah. We want to go to the next one. Overcoming adversity. So that's where I was just talking about. So this is a picture of me 3 years or 2.5 years ago now, I had surgery on both of my legs. A lot of people told me at the time I would never be able to come back and compete. I would never be able to do any of this stuff again. But we get told a lot of times in life, there's a lot of people who it's easy for you to be negative, say, oh, you can't do that. It's easy to give up and just go the easy path. I told myself, no, I'm going to be getting myself healthy again, and I'm going to be competing at the top level, and I'm going to be the best. But it took a lot of sacrifice, and it took a lot of battling. So I had compartment syndrome in both of my calves. What compartment syndrome is there's muscle fascias. There's 4 muscles down there that's surrounded. There's a muscle tissue surrounding it. And what's happening is those muscles are getting constricted by that, and you can actually lose your legs from it. So what they do is they open up your calf, and they go in and they cut open each of those compartments to release the pressure. So I had to have that done on both my calves. And what actually happened earlier that season, I rolled my ankle when I was in Whistler competing. I was walking on the side of the track, rolled my ankle in the snow. It hurt. And my team doctor and some other doctors looked at it, and they're like, okay, yeah, you just sprained it. You'll be fine. You can continue competing on it. What we didn't realize was until I had this surgery, I was off of, they're like, once you have this surgery, your ankle's going to heal because you'll give it the time that it needs, the rest that it needs. Once I started walking again, my ankle was completely locked up, and they didn't know. They're like, whoa, what's going on? So we went in and did some imaging, and I actually had an avulsion fracture of my right malleoli, which is the bump on the side of your ankle. So there's a ligament that attaches to it, and the ligament ripped off a chunk of bone, and that got in between my ankle where it rotates. And every time I was running the whole season, I was digging a hole. So they don't understand how I was even walking, let alone running. I have a very high pain tolerance, but they kept telling me it was okay. So I ended up doing a lot of damage to my ankle. So after I had this surgery, 3 weeks later, I had an ankle surgery. And that's when I've had a lot of family members, a lot of friends, everybody were like, you're done. You can't do anything anymore. And yeah, I could have listened to them. I could have said, okay, I'm done. But I told them, I was like, I still have the abilities. I can overcome this. We are amazing what we can do if we put our mind to it. And I still to this day have people that are telling me, no, you won't ever make it. And I have proven them wrong by fighting through it and struggling through. So the picture on the left right here is me in a squat rack at the Olympic Training Center. I can't use my legs because I just had surgery on it, but I still needed to be able to keep the strength in my legs so that way when my legs were ready to. So I'm doing actually knee squats where I'm squatting the bar on my knees. So I'm able to keep the muscle and stuff like that and the strength in my legs, where most people would just stop. Okay, I can't do anything until I can start walking again. Where I was able to work with my athletic trainer, my coaches, and my strength coaches, and develop a program that would allow me to continue to keeping my strength and continue developing, so that way I can get back and make it back and disprove all those disbelievers, the people that said that I couldn't do it. I used that as motivation to inspire myself. You have so many people that will tell you you can't do it, but if you believe in yourself, you can do it. You can really do a lot of things, but we always give ourselves doubt, and it's like, oh, can I really do that? Can I? And I had that doubt. I had it in my head, but then I was able to say, no, I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to overpower this, and I'm going to continue forward.
Was there someone, maybe your grandmother, that helped you with that?
Yeah.
To get that perseverance?
That's actually a great question. That's exactly the person. My parents stood by me, and my grandma. I looked at what she had been going through, and my other grandma as well, fighting through cancer, and how much they were fighting, and I used that as motivation as well. They gave me, okay, how much, seeing them go through chemo and battling that and doing what they had to and just battling to do the basic things. I was like, okay, they're battling that. I was like, this is nothing. I can battle this. So I was able to use that as motivation too. But it's just finding whatever it is in your situation in your life and being able to use that as motivation. Because we all have it. We all have the situations where you can find that motivation. You can find those people. Surround yourself by those people. One of the things, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of great people because of the sport I do. And I've met a lot of very successful businessmen, businesswomen around the world that have ran Fortune 500 companies and these very big companies. And one of the messages that I've got from a lot of them that I actually use myself now is surround yourself by 5 people. Because those 5 people that you spend time with, there's going to be 5 core people in your life. If you break down your life, there's 5 people that you spend the most time with. surround yourself with 5 positive people that are going to have the same goals and the same aspirations. That doesn't have to be in the same category of life, but has the same drive that you want or that you are looking towards getting. So if you want to surround yourself by negative people, you're going to start portraying those kind of people. You're going to start being negative because you're surrounding yourself by those negative people, and that's the aspect they have on life. But if you surround yourself by the positive people that have ambitions, that have goals, that work hard, you're going to start having those same that same attitude, that same motivation, that same drive as those 5 people. Okay, we want to go to the next slide. Never give up. Never give up. This is a little bit after I had the surgery as well. Doing some more exercises in the gym. I couldn't even walk at this point, but it's just believing in yourself, which you have to believe in yourself. We are our own worst enemy. We can tell ourselves to stay in bed in the morning and dream. There's the dreamers that lay in bed and dream about the things that they want. Then there's the believers that have those dreams and then they get up and they make those dreams a reality. So you can choose. You can stay there, you can lay in bed and you can continue dreaming. Or you can believe and you can get out of bed and you can go drive and you can go, but just never give up. You got to believe in yourself. We want to go to the next slide. If you work hard, you can achieve your dream. So this actually was this season. I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel around the world representing Team USA. And because of that, I get to go to these amazing places that I never would be able to experience on my own. I would never be able to. So this is actually a cathedral in Milan, Italy. And it is absolutely stunning. And being able to work hard, and when I was going through the surgeries, by battling through the adversity, by keep working hard, by continuing and just working and working and working, I've been able to achieve my dream of being able to travel the world and see these beautiful places and be able to go and learn from these cultures and see what it's like in their eyes and in their part of the world. And that's one of the things that I'm actually very grateful for, is being able to travel to all these countries all over the world. And it gives me that much more appreciation for what we have here in the U.S. The U.S., we are very lucky what we have here, and a lot of people take it for advantage, but they've never been able to experience and see the way that other people live in the world. They just understand what we have here, and we take for granted being able to wake up and make the decisions, and I can choose that I want to do this. When you go to some of these parts of the world, they don't have a choice. They have to go in, they have to do this. This is what they're doing in life. But being here, being in the U.S., we have the privilege and the honor of being able to do what we want. And it's thankful to our military service who sacrificed so much to allow us to have the choices, to be able to choose. But if you believe in yourself, you can achieve your dreams, but they're not going to be handed to you. You have to work hard, and it's hard work ethic that will get you to those dreams. And it's the daily grind and setting up the goals so that way you have an end goal in mind, but setting it up a pathway so that way you can achieve those dreams. But it's the hard work, and that will get you there.
Stephen, this is some wonderful messages that you're sharing with us today. I would like to encourage everyone out there to ask some questions. We have about 15 more minutes. Okay. So please send in your questions now as he continues to go through his slideshow.
Yep, perfect. We want to go to the next slide? I want everybody to join my team and be a part with me as I continue to represent Colorado and Team USA on my journey towards the Winter Olympics in Beijing, China. There's a few ways that you guys can be part of my team. It's just following me, following my journey on social media. If you go out there and you follow my travels, you'll be able to be part of my team just by supporting me, just by liking a photo. That gives me the inspiration. I take the inspiration from all the people that follow me, and I really work. It inspires me to continue on my growth and to continue to go forward. So I just wanted to ask everybody out here watching this today is to just join me and just follow me. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to me on my social medias, and I answer them when I am available, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can. But I just want just motivation. Having a group behind you, it's the team behind the team is what I call it. So I couldn't get to the point at here in my life if I didn't have a support group behind me, if I didn't have the team behind the team. And that's my coaches, that's my parents, that's my family, that's my friends, that's my sponsors, and that's my fans. It's like if I didn't have these people there behind me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So I want you guys to be part of my team and join me on my path going forward. Also, one thing that people don't realize with athletes in the U.S., the USOC is one of only 3 countries in the world that is all self-funded or sponsor-funded. So when I go compete against Germany, Russia, they're all paid athletes. We think of our athletes in the U.S. as paid, but we're thinking of baseball, football, basketball. All of our swimmers, our skeleton athletes, bobsled, all of these Olympic sports that we all love, it's all athletes paying for it themselves. And it's all sponsors and friends and families. So I actually host a fundraising golf tournament every year. So if you guys know people that like to play golf, send them my way. It's at Arrowhead Golf Course on April 19th. And this fundraiser actually helps raise funds for my season and my journey that will help pay for my training when I need to eat when I'm on the road and all of those things. So I wanted to send that message out there.
Can we just take a second maybe and share how they can find you on social media?
Yes, I believe it's on the next slide.
Okay, excellent.
Yep. So here is all my contact information on social media. So on Facebook, it's just Stephen Garbett USA. On Instagram, it's Garbett_USA. On Twitter, it is Garbett_Stephen. And on LinkedIn, it is Stephen Garbett Team USA. You'll be able to find me on all the social medias that way. Yeah.
Stephen, you do a lot also for your community in which you serve.
Yes.
And so can you just elaborate a little bit about that?
Yes. Thank you for acknowledging that, and that's something that I'm passionate about, giving back to the community. I believe that all of us are in situations. I'm very fortunate to be in the situation that I am, that I can give back a lot more, and I know that I have kids that look up to me and that aspire to do what I am doing right now. But everybody can give back to their community in any which ways. Find local organizations that need help. So I currently work with the Cancer League of Colorado, which is an amazing community that tries to eliminate cancer. And they have a lot of great benefits and a lot of great things going on. They have the Hope Ball coming up. Cancer League of Colorado is one of them, but that's just one of many of them that are out there. I actually go to military bases and I do free speeches for the military. I also go out to local schools and inspire kids and go talk to the kids and just try to inspire them to follow their dreams, to work hard. One of the biggest messages that I try to relay to the kids is I've been successful enough, but that's because I work hard in sport and in school. At the top level of all athletics, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, any of these sports, all the people that I've met that have been able to make it to that level are very well educated. So they've worked hard in school. I've seen so many great athletes that had the skill to make it to the next level, but because they didn't study in the school part, they ended up not making it to the next level. So that's one of the messages that I try to relay to kids and everybody out there when if they want to go further in athletics, the education is just as important. But yeah, I always encourage people to find areas in your community because our communities are great. I love being from Colorado. I've traveled all over the world, and I don't know if there's a better area to be than Colorado. Colorado has everything. The people are great. You have the mountains, you have the foothills, you have the plains, you have everything that you need here, and it's the community. The people in Colorado are really, really nice people. So by giving back, by going, whether it's through your church, whether it's through any kind of organization for kids or any kind of organization like the Cancer League, find whatever one you can or whatever one that you're passionate in and donate a little bit of time. You don't always have to donate money. Just by donating time and you being there is a big help for a lot of these organizations.
So you do a lot of things in the community. Mm-hmm. When do you have time to train and how long do you train?
Yeah, that's a great question. So training during the summer, we train like Olympic sprinters, and training is normally 4 to 8 hours a day with training. So a typical training, I'll walk you through a day in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. So I normally wake up at 6 a.m., I'll get ready, I go to breakfast. Nutrition is very, very important. So during the summer, I normally eat 6,000 to 8,000 calories a day because that's how much my body burns and how much fuel I need. So food is part of my job. So I need to eat the proper nutrition, because whatever you put into your body is how you perform. Race car, you're not going to go put in cheap unleaded gas into a race car. You're going to put in high performance gas. Same thing with food. So we start off with nutrition, then we go to first training session. Our first training session is about a 45-minute warm-up, and then 2 to 3 hours worth of either strength-based training or sprint-based training, depending on the day. Then afterwards, we go into recovery, which will go into ice baths and Normatec pants. Normatec pants are these puffy pants that cycle the blood through your legs to help with recovery. From there, we go to lunch. After lunch, we have about a 30-minute break, and then we go to second training. Second training consists of another 45-minute warm-up, and then about another 2 hours worth of working out, core stability, mobility, movement-based training. After that, you go back to recovery, because recovery is just as important. So we get into recovery, we're doing ice baths, Normatec, massage therapy, any of those kind of things that you need. And then we go to dinner. After dinner, you take about an hour break, and then we go to second dinner to make sure that you eat the calories that are needed, and then that's a day.
Stephen, we have a question from Nicholas here.
Yes.
It says, what do you do when you have others who do not encourage you towards your goals? Or has this ever happened to you?
Yes, that is actually a great question, Nicholas. I actually have had it many times. There's a lot of people that will tell you that you can't do something in life. It's being able to find the things that motivate you and that will inspire you to ignore that. And you're going to have people tell you you can't. A lot of people, it's easy to say, oh, you can't do that. That's too hard. No one's done that before. That's impossible. But if you believe in it, you have to believe in yourself, first of all, and then you have to believe that you can do it. I actually use those people as motivation. So when those people tell me I can't, I use that as a little bit of like a fire that is lit underneath me. I'm like, okay, they don't think I can. I believe in myself, and I know that if I continue doing this and continue working hard, and I have this goal set up to achieve it, I just have to follow my plan going forward. And I use them as the ignition. I use them as the fire to get me started. It's a great question, Nicholas. Thank you. All right, we want to go to, I think we have one more page on here, or 2 more pages. Nope. Oh, yeah, that was just my golf tournaments. This is Arrowhead Golf Course right here. It's beautiful. It's one of the great parts of our state that we talked about earlier. If you guys wanted or knew any golfers that wanted to play, you guys can always join me, and there's a link there where you can click on it, and it'll take you, and it'll tell you about me, about the tournament as well. And then I think there's one more page maybe, or is that the last one? Yeah, question and answer. So
Excellent. Where to begin? And you only train during the summer? What does that look like?
Yeah, so during the summer we can't get on ice. So summer training is sprint-based training and neuro-based training. So we train our brains to be able to process things at extreme speeds. We have that there's a few ways we do that. One is by games. There's certain games that we play on our phones that can train us to react at higher speeds. Because when we're traveling down the ice at up to 90 miles an hour, the perspective when your chin's an inch from the ice is way different than if you're sitting in a car high up traveling at 90 miles an hour. The best way to explain it is if you've ever driven a car at over 200 miles an hour, that's the perception of what it's like with things going by. So we need to be able to prepare ourselves for that. So I'll do brain training with these certain games. We also have one game where we have to, it's at the training center as a box. We have to read, and then it has dots all over this board. And while we're reading, the dots will light up, and we have to be able to register that and react. And it increases our brain function. But then also our strength training. Our strength training involves getting a lot faster and a lot stronger. So we want to be really, really strong at the top. Also, it's not a lot of people, I don't have a big upper body. And there's a reason for that. When you're going down a bobsled track, I am cutting through the air myself, so aerodynamics are very important. If I got a big upper body, I would be less aerodynamic. So it's kind of like an SUV versus a sports car. A sports car is going to be able to cut through the air a lot quicker. Same thing with me. I want to have really strong legs, but if I have too big of an upper body, I'm not going to be able to be as fast.
And I'm assuming that you stay at the Olympic Training Center, and
yes.
What is that like?
Yeah, so I actually live at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, which is an amazing facility, and it's really cool being able to live there and train there, and it's awesome that it's in this great state. But meeting all the different athletes, meeting the top athletes in the world and being able to live with them and train with them. And it's very, very fun because you use their drive and their motivation, and they might not be able to do the things that I can do, but I can't do the things that they can do either. But being able to see them and see them train and how hard they work, we actually feed off each other and we motivate each other to continue working harder. So it's an environment that is really cool because everybody wants to be the best in the world, and everybody there is the best in the world, but that's because of the hard work ethic that they put to get there. So it's cool surrounding yourself with these people. And I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of great athletes. Like going into Rio, my next door neighbor was Michael Phelps, and just seeing his drive and being able to train alongside with great athletes like that has been absolutely amazing. So I'm very blessed and very fortunate that I've been able to live and train at the Olympic Training Center.
Excellent. And we have another question. How often, considering the travel, do you get some sort of sickness before an event, and how do you combat this? Yeah,
that's actually a great question, and we actually work with our nutritionists to be able to combat, so that way when we are traveling, we don't get sick. So it's just depending on your body and everything, understanding the nutrition that you need to be having, and also when we do go and have the extended travels, normally before I get onto a plane, I always take Emergency just to boost my immune system and give it the extra vitamin C's. And also just when you are traveling, not drinking alcohol in the air, and there's certain things that you don't want to do that will help, because there's certain things like drinking alcohol in the air that actually weakens the immune system, because a lot of times we'll travel and we'll have to get there and compete. So by doing some preventative type stuff, like taking an Emergency before I travel, and not having an alcoholic beverage or anything like that in the air, make a huge difference. But it's also the nutrition that we eat, making sure you're eating the clean foods, make a big, big difference. But that also becomes very difficult when you go to Germany and you're not used to those kind of foods. But that's when we work with our nutritionists at the Olympic Training Center, and they can prepare us so that way we can go into a grocery store in Germany and we can understand, okay, this is what I need to look for. These are the kind of things that I need to look for.
Wow. We have about 60 seconds left, and could you just kind of elaborate what's after Team USA? What is the plan?
Yeah, so I plan on being an entrepreneur and developing my own businesses and working hard. Right now, I'm currently working with a sponsors company, raising funds for a cancer diagnostic company, but I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to create businesses and help people. So I want to really be able to help people. I also do speeches, and being a public speaker is one of the things that I plan on doing in the future. But it's just being able to inspire and motivate and tell people to go after their dreams, because we all have our dreams, but sometimes we need an extra little push and someone to help us get there. And there's those people out there. So I want to just help people get to where they want to be.
Well, Stephen, you have definitely inspired me, and I'm sure everyone out in, I guess, Webland.
Yeah.
Right? But thank you very much for your time today. Again, it was very inspirational. I enjoyed your messages. We appreciate you coming on our community connection piece today. My name is Michelle Ray Meredith. I was the moderator for today's segment. Please check back with us on the second Wednesday of each month at 1 p.m. We're looking forward to the next segment. Thank you.
Thanks.